Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to do a full manicure and we're going to apply the Nature Strong new line, and this is the Eco Maniac with a top coat. It doesn't need a base coat. When it comes to colored manicures, the free edge doesn't really have to be the same length as long as the nail length is the same. So you'll see me kind of not shortening this one as much as this, because when you're looking at the nail, these two have a very similar length. So I'm going to leave it this way. If the nails were clear, then we could kind of match the free edge, but if they're polished, then it's better to match the look of the nail or the length of the full nail, because sometimes the nail beds are different length. This is an Erica's ATA file. It's a diamond file, and I'm going to leave a link below. This is a medium, but you can use a fine. Textured is the best. I like these files because they fit nicely, and they're not sharp, so they don't cut the skin. They are expensive, but they last a lifetime for sure. I mean, lifetime if you're not doing this for a living, because for me, I don't know, they last about maybe a couple years. I have a whole bunch of them, like enough for one day. I probably have like 10 files. Okay, this hand is a little bit longer, so we're gonna shorten it a little bit. Someone was asking me what shape is best to elongate the nail. So this shape would be the best for like a normal length. So basically just taking the corners off a little bit, the sides off a little bit, but not really digging too far into the skin, because that will weaken the nail. So just taking off this side a little bit to soften it. So now the trick is, for example, let's see this nail. This one. Okay, so once you push it back, there's really not a lot of skin. And sometimes it's better to leave this little skin here, the proximal nail fold, because the cuticle is this white part that I'm going to remove underneath. Hope it's visible. And what happens is when the proximal nail fold, this part here, is stuck to the nail, it keeps growing with it, and that's what causes the kind of a longer, what people think is a cuticle. If you push it back on a regular basis, even when people come in every 2 weeks, this will shrink back, and then you never have to cut it. So this is what I do, and usually the first manicure is not perfect, but eventually it will get much better. These are great. I prefer to do a dry manicure. You can also use a cuticle remover. I just prefer not to add any water to the manicure. The client already washed her hands, and I washed my hands. And a lot of people ask what to do if, you know, they have a lot of that skin, overgrown cuticle. They call it, but it's not an overgrown cuticle. It's overgrown or stretched proximal nail fold. So same thing, you just push it back, moisturize it, use the oil so the skin is nice and flexible, and it's going to bounce back, and there's not going to be anything to cut. And it's hard because when people come in for one manicure and they want instant results, then many times, you know, in the salon, nail technicians, they're trying to just make you happy, and they just cut it. But once you cut it, that skin is just going to regrow thicker, and then you are caught in this cycle of cutting and growing too much, cutting and growing too much, and there's never any, you know, solving the situation. So I prefer not to cut it, explain to the client that this is way safer, better in the long run. This is a medium bit from Erica. I use tiny pressure. I push back the skin a little bit. As you can see, there was not a lot of dust flying around, because when you see a lot of dust, usually that's not just the skin, but it's the nail that's being filed, and you have to be very careful that you don't touch the nail. So these little edges, you can nicely exfoliate them. very, very important thing is to remember that what I'm doing here, I'm just exfoliating the skin and removing a little bit of a hard skin, but I'm not trying to remove dry skin. This is actually a huge thing to understand, because you cannot fix dry skin or damaged skin by filing when you really think about it. So if you have, let's say, a dry lips or dry, you know, skin on your face, you're not gonna file that away, right? You're gonna use creams to fix it or to help your skin, and it's the same thing. So what I'm doing is I'm just exfoliating a little bit. I'm not trying to remove every dry piece of skin, because if I do that, it's going to cause inflammation and it's going to make the skin grow even harder, and it's going to do more damage. It's not going to fix anything. So yes, it's going to look much better because all those dry flakes are going to be gone, but the next day the skin is going to be swollen, probably a little bit, or sometimes it's not even visible but it is inflamed, and we haven't solved anything. So what client has to do is, it's almost like going for a facial. Like, facial is not going to, you're gonna, you know, have a nice exfoliation, whatever, some masks, creams, but it's not going to fix your dry skin. You have to fix your dry skin yourself, so you have to be using creams and protect your skin, right? Same thing with this. So, you know, I get a lot of comments and people are saying, oh my god, but this is still dry looking. Like, how can you leave a client like that? Yes, it's dry looking because it is a little dry, and the client just has to take care of that area, because usually people kind of forget. So, and it's a little dry looking right now because also it's a little dusty, and once we put oil, it's going to look a million times better as well. So this is all I'm going to do. I'm not going to overfile again. It's just to kind of freshen up that area. All right, and I'm just going to use a buffer. I'm going to take the file to the buffer a little bit to soften it, because we don't want to remove layers from the nail. But the nails are quite shiny, which is nice. We're just going to take the shine off a little bit, so the polish will stick a little bit better, tiny bit. And this also kind of cleans up that area, the cuticle area, so there is no catches. And it kind of just pushes back the skin as well nicely. When you do this part, you can also kind of take care of all these hard edges with the buffer a little bit, like this. I prefer to do it with the machine because it's much smaller bits, so I have more control over which part of skin I'm filing. And I'm not going to put a cream and oil now. I'm going to do that after the manicure, because I don't want to be putting any oils. Like, I really kind of don't understand why you would be putting oil on now and then removing it with acetone, right? Maybe there's a reason for it. Everybody has. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just that I prefer to work on a very dry surface, and that also allows me to see a little bit better, because I can really see the edges of the nail where the skin starts. And this way I can polish better. You can see where I'm polishing. I see a lot of times people would cut this little area, but I'm going to leave it, and you'll see the next manicure, the skin is going to be much better. And I tell clients to do that on a regular basis, to grab a little stick like that and just push it back gently, just so it doesn't stick. So now it's longer because it was stuck there, but it will kind of bounce back. So this every few days, just very, very lightly. Literally, it takes you like a minute to do this, right? Just kind of push it back, make sure that it's released from the nail, and that skin is going to stay back now. So that's the trick. It's amazing. I'm going to use lint-free pad and a prep and clean the nails. and the free edge as well, like underneath. If you don't have a special prep, you can use 99% alcohol or 96% alcohol, or even alcohol mixed with acetone. That's also good. I'm gonna turn off the fan. And the first coat is going to be quite thin. See, now I can see exactly where everything is. OPI does not have the best brushes because they're quite wide and square. I prefer the round brushes, but so I'm going to grab a small amount, point the nail down a little bit, and spread the bristles. I'm going to perfect this shape on the second coat. Okay. Small amount. Honestly easier to paint someone else's nails than your own because you can move this finger. You can rub. Some people like to rub the free edge, some people don't. If the nails are short, sometimes it's okay without rubbing. When the first coat is thin, you can control the product way better. So it's not going to drip anywhere where you don't want it to go. And again, very often you see when people are swatching products, they apply way more product on the first coat because they almost want to cover the nail in the, like using the first coat. And I prefer to really apply this thin because I know this color especially, it's going to cover very well in 2 coats. This also will dry much quicker, and usually it will wear better. See how empty this brush is? There's not a lot of product. And this is dried already. So we can apply a second coat. So this one I might do a little bit thicker, tiny bit. So I have a little bit more product. We'll see how this goes on. So you see the brush doesn't spread as much. There we go. It's going to give you a little bit more shiny surface. And there's a little bit more product. have to say, because there is no base coat, the first coat of color goes on much better. So this brush, you can apply more pressure with it, so it doesn't bother me as much as if I had to use the OPI with the base coat. I still prefer a round brush, but I can live with this. The formula of these polishes is really, really good. They're very creamy. Okay. I'm gonna grab my brush and pure acetone, and we're going to clean up the edges a little bit. There's not much to clean. I managed to do a good job. But if something is off, you can now clean it up. And now this gives the polish some time to dry as well. Actually, I can see that it's drying very well. We had to step away a little bit because we had someone at the front door asking stuff, so they had a chance to dry for like, I don't know, 2 minutes or something. So normally sometimes I would give them like 2 minutes to dry, but they're pretty dry, so we don't have to give it additional time. They're not fully dry, but good enough. So now we're going to do a top coat, and the top coat I found applying it not too thick is a good idea. Not too thin, but also not too thick. Sometimes when it's applied too thick, it can kind of shrink. And I'm gonna do the thumb last because I want them to stay nice and flat so nothing drips to the sides. So this polish apparently you can wear without a top coat, but you know what? It's not that shiny. I mean, it's okay, but it looks just like any other polish without a top coat, so I would recommend, I mean, if you're in a super hurry, I guess you can skip it. But with a top coat, it's more shiny and it's going to last better. Of course, there had to be a little bubble here. So you see, as if you're putting more pressure, it's going to pick up the color a little bit. Just keep it like this. Okay, now we're going to give them 5-minute dry, or like let's say 8. And we'll be right back. 8 minutes later, let's see how they look. They look pretty dry. Like obviously they're not fully dry, but they're good. Let's do this. A nice oil. So see now all that dryness is gone. It smells so good. Sometimes when you're putting oil on the nails, they kind of get a little bit duller initially. I noticed that with Dazzle Dry, even when they're fully dry, but don't worry about it. It will become more shiny as they goes by. Okay, and nail cream. And this is it for today. And we probably will do a follow-up next week. So definitely subscribe if you aren't. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.